Good morning. It's a beautiful fall morning here. It's Thursday morning, and I'm Abel Keogh, and I'm here to talk about a Widower Wednesday column I wrote yesterday called How to Know If a Widower is Ready to Date Again. And I posted this online, and I got some interesting feedback on the Dating a Widower Facebook group, on some comments on the blog, some emails sent to me about my advice. And so instead of typing out a response, I thought I'd take a few minutes here and kind of talk about the situation and why I gave the advice that I gave. Um, and if this works, I've never done a video thing before. If this works, if this turns out to be a useful format, you can comment below or send me an email or wherever this is posted, leave some feedback. If this is a useful thing, I'm happy to maybe consider doing this once in a while. So let's get to the column. Widower Wednesday, how can you know if a widower is ready to date again? And in this column, I gave some advice. And basically, somebody emailed me, and it was a unique email. It wasn't the standard emails that I get. Usually emails I get from women are women who are in a relationship with a widower or are married to a widower, and they're asking some questions. This one was different, and why it stood out to me is because this woman isn't in a relationship with a widower. What it is that she has a neighbor who's been recently widowed, and she knows him casually. She knows him in the neighborhood. They've had conversations in the neighborhood. They've had conversations in church. Maybe, I don't know, they run into each other at the store. So, they know each other in a casual way. But, over this time since he's lost his wife, she's kind of been attracted to him. And she's wondering, hey, is there something here? Maybe, should I ask him out? Is there any possibility for a relationship here? But she has some concerns. And the big concern she has is that he's still wearing his wedding ring. And he's posting things on his late wife's Facebook page. So maybe she's friends with him on Facebook or friends with the late wife, and when he posts stuff, she sees it. So somehow she knows that he's posting stuff. And so she wants to know, I kind of want to ask this guy out, but is he ready? How can I know if this guy's ready? Because she doesn't want to open his heart to him or do things to him only to have him, turn her down or find out that he's not ready. And that's a natural response. I don't think anybody wants to get into a situation where, hey, I want to ask this person out and get shot down. I mean, no one wants to be there. And so her question is, how can I know he has these red flags? Is he ready to date again? And so, my answer basically was, I don't know. I don't know if he's ready to date again. Just because he has a ring on his finger, just because he's posting on his late wife's Facebook page doesn't mean anything. A lot of why I wrote these Dating a Widower books and why I write these Widower Wednesday columns, one of the big reasons is I want you to understand how men, especially how widowers, think. And in this case, if you're asking me, well, he has a ring on his finger and he's doing all this other stuff, outwardly, I'd say, yeah, it doesn't look like he's ready to date again. But the example I gave in my Widower Wednesday column was, let's put this up there. What if there was a widower who had photos of his late wife in every room? He wore his wedding ring on a chain around his neck, and he recently bought and renovated the house that his late wife wanted to buy right before she died. Would that widower be ready to move on? And again, on the outside, probably not. But that widower was me when Marathon Girl and I started dating. I had a ring on a chain around my neck. I had pictures of the late wife all over the house. I had just bought and refurbished a house that we had thought about buying together. And so, yeah, all these things are saying I'm not ready. But the way men think, the way widowers think, is that no widower on the face of the planet is going to get up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to take my ring off. I'm going to take the photos down. I'm going to memorialize my late wife's Facebook page and never post on there again because I'm ready to start dating. That's not how men think. That's not how men act. Men need to be given a choice. Widowers need to be given a choice whether or not they're ready to move on. So in my case, yeah, I had photos up. I had a ring around my neck, and I had bought this house. Now, to be fair, Marathon Girl didn't know most of this stuff. She couldn't see the ring around my neck. She didn't know the history of the house. She knew where I lived, but she didn't know the history of the house. And she had really only been in there superficially. She really hadn't really walked through the house and seen any pictures. So, to be fair, she didn't know all that. But at the same time, I didn't know if I was ready to move on yet. I was dating around. I felt that I wanted to, but it wasn't until I met Marathon Girl and fell in love with her on our second date, by the way, that I realized, I've got to make a choice here. That I have to decide whether or not I'm going to wear the ring around my neck. I have to decide if I'm going to have all these pictures up on the walls of my house. I have to decide, at some point, is this a house that Marathon Girl wants to live in? Because of the emotional history of it, it being a house that my late wife wanted to buy, and a house and something that ended up buying after she died. So going back, so I had to make that choice. What did I value more? My late marriage, my emotional attachment to the late wife, or did I want to move on and start over? And that's the situation that I got into here. I said, well, you're not going to know if this widower here, who's posting on his late wife's Facebook page and everything, is even ready to move on, because he hasn't made that choice. He hasn't had a chance, at least with you, to make that choice and decide what he values more. And so my advice was, I don't know, ask him out and, feel him up a little bit. Feel him out a little bit. Go take him to coffee. Go do something with him, whatever it is. Invite him over for dinner at your place and just have a conversation with him. Kind of get a sense if he's ready to move on, because no widower is going to wake up and take off the ring and put down his phone and take down the pictures and give an outward sign that he's ready to move on. And the thing is, and so a lot of the comments came in. Actually, I should probably read some of them here. Just people that disagreed. One second here. Let me see. Um, he says, my take is that the poor widower has no little or self-responsibility moving forward, and is the potential girlfriend of the widower has to do all the heavy lifting. No. Again, he has to be given that choice, right? He has the responsibility to move forward, but he's not going to move forward until you give him a choice. Okay? Until he has to make that choice and say, what do I value more, time with this woman or living in the past? He needs to make that choice, and unless he has that choice, he's not going to make it. Um, Another comment: if he is showing interest in her, she needs to set her boundaries from the start, and the first would be to tell him that she does not date married men. I agree, but he's not the one showing interest in her. She's the one showing interest in him. And so when you have this first date situation, now I agree, if a widower comes and he asks a woman out, and you see a ring on his finger and you see red flags, you're completely within your rights to say, you know what, I'd love to go out with you, but I don't date married. You have a ring on your finger and that makes me feel like I'm dating a married man or something like that, right? That's completely fine. But this is the opposite situation. She's wanting to ask him out or getting to know him better. And in that case, you can't go up to somebody and say, hey, I want to go out with you, but you've got to take the ring off your finger. You can't go up to someone and say, hey, I'd like to go out with you. Would you go out with me, but shave your beard first? Will you go out with me, but you have to cut your hair first? Or lose 10 pounds first, okay? If you're doing the asking on that first date, you've got to kind of accept that person for what it is right then. You can't ask for changes before the first date. And really, a first date is just a chance to go out there and get to know each other better. We're not getting into some kind of big commitment with wedding bells here. It's just, in her case, hey, talk to him a little bit. Maybe you can ask him, hey, have you thought about dating, or have you been on any dates, or how are you moving on since since your late wife passed away? You can bring stuff like this up in a conversation and kind of get an idea. And there's no guarantee that the widower is even ready to date. He may not be. He may be happy just the way things are. He may not have an interest in the woman. I mean, that's just the way that it goes. Let me see. Again, more comments. I'd be offended if a man wearing a wedding ring asked me out. Okay, but that's not the situation. Agreed. She's asking him out, or she wants to get to know him better. He hasn't shown any interest in her. She's the one that's showing interest in him. Things like that. Let me see. Far too much self-respect to date a man wearing a wedding ring if it's not from our wedding. Okay, again, fine. But again, this is universal for all widowers. Give them a choice. Men are not going to take off their wedding ring. Do you want to know why I took? Oh, here, I'll give you an example. So when Marathon Girl and I were dating, I wasn't wearing a wedding ring on my finger. I moved it to a chain around my neck. Do you want to know why I did that? It's because there was lots of awkward conversations that would go on because people would think that I was married. And it wasn't necessarily dating conversations, but it was just conversations. I remember, when I was like refurbishing the house, I remember picking out some flooring, and the guy's like, "Well, do you want your wife to come in here and help you pick this out?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not married." He says, "Well, you're wearing a wedding ring." And it's just like, oh, great. I don't want to talk to the salesman about the fact that I've lost my wife, and I'm just, that was too emotional. So it was easier for me to take the wedding ring off and put it around my neck. If I hadn't had those things, I probably still would have been wearing a wedding ring when Julie and I went out. So, there's that. But again, it comes down to a choice. Widowers need to make the choice. And until they have a situation in front of them where it's like, hey, what do I value more? They're not going to take them down. So the whole advice here is don't look at the outside and know whether somebody's ready to move on or not. When a widower finds the right person, the pictures will go down, the ring will come off, there will be no more posts on the late wife's Facebook page, all these red flags that people talk about. He'll be excited and happy to introduce you to his family. That's the key. That's the secret to the whole thing. So don't judge widowers just because they're wearing a ring. Give them a chance. Give them a chance to make a choice. I'll go into more detail later, maybe about wearing wedding rings and how to draw boundaries. That'll be my next video post. But again, outward signs that a widower is ready to date again, it's hard to tell unless you actually ask them and give them that choice. Give them a situation where maybe this first date goes good and he's like, hey, we should get together again. At that point, okay, fine, you can say, hey, I'd love to get together again, but just so you know, it makes me uncomfortable when you're wearing your wedding ring. But again, understand the situation. She's interested in him. She wants to know if he's ready to date again. And my advice is the only way you're going to know that is to go out with him and start having a serious conversation with him. Thanks. Subscribe below, comment below. If you want some more dating a widower advice, check out my books, Dating a Widower and the Ultimate Dating Guide for Widowers on Amazon. Thank you.